Everybody, welcome back. Let me get you caught up where we're at right now. So I got all of the accessories on the front of the engine. Got the AC compressor here with the modification where I cut that boss off. I'll show you that here in just a bit. So the steering pump is on. Got the idler tensioner pulley, the idler pulley. I've got the oil filter adapter, and we have the alternator on here. I also did the pan swap. The factory pan was a front sump. What you need to not forget is the factory pan has a boss right here for the dipstick, and this is a replacement one is a steel to make it a rear sump, and it does not have that molded into the pan. But it has a boss right here on the side of the block. It's got like a miniature freeze plug in it. You got to make sure that you get it out. You got to knock it out from the inside out before you put your pan on, because otherwise you're going to be doing it again. The pan gasket that I got replaces the one that was in there. It's basically a windage tray with the pan gasket molded onto it, and then I got a new sump pickup. And I'll show you that swap out here in a little bit. So what we're going to end up doing now is I'm going to remove the factory intake manifold. We're not going to use it. The kit is designed for this, and it actually comes with an air box that goes over here where your washer fluid reservoir is, and then it gives you a new reservoir to move over to the passenger side. I did get all that in case I end up having to configure it like that, but we got the Edelbrock Victor Jr. intake manifold with the straight snout for the throttle body instead of angled off to the driver's side, because we want to keep the rugged ridge snorkel that we got. I'm sure that I can make it work. What my concern is airflow. And once we get it on the dyno, we'll know where we stand with that. And if I have to, I can reconfigure it in there and eliminate one end of the snorkel and just have it draw air from under the hood. But my expectations are pretty high. So with that being said, we're going to get this off. I'm just going to tape up the intake runners, and then that way I can use my engine leveler to bolt it on and get it through. This is with the plastic valve covers and the coil packs on there and everything. I just don't want chains running around the side and taking a chance on breaking something. So it'll be easier to do stuff around the engine compartment with this off anyway, and then I'll install the new one when it's in the engine. So I'm still waiting on the transmission bell housing. That's the last item, and it's on back order for the 5-speed automatic that fits the Hemi. One of the things I ended up getting was this adapter plate. It's going to go between the bell housing and the back of the block so that the Hemi starter bolts up. Dakota Customs pretty much taken everything into consideration, and there's a lot of work to be done, but it's not hard stuff. They literally spell everything out for you. So let's get started on that. All right, well, you have to make a modification to your AC compressor to get clearance because it's really close to the inside. I think it's the steering box. So when we turn it over, you see this big aluminum boss here. There's one here and there's one here where those big long bolts go through. And there's actually one here. So this is the piece that I took off. This is the bracket for your wire. This screws to this, and then it keeps the wire off the pulley when it's spinning. But this is the piece you need to take off. So I started out with a die grinder, and I don't have the die grinding discs for aluminum, but I scored it here and here, and it gave me a guide to use my air saw. And I cut this down here, and it's only attached at this top part right there, and then I scored it over there, and I taped up the pulley with several layers of masking tape, and I was able to get in here and ever so carefully. So this guide here runs on the pulley, so the blade's not going to hit the pulley. I just didn't want to scar this up, but I was able to run this across and cut it off rough enough that I wasn't digging into the back side of the case here. I mean, the edge of the blade scraped it up a bit, but I just dressed it up. So you can see here, after I got it cut off, I got a couple different die grinding bits. was able to smooth all this out. I got a row lock disc. I was able to smooth that flat and grind this flat. And then the kit, the Hemi swap kit from Dakota Customs, actually AC compressor bolt. So you get the two. I ordered two from Jeep for here and here, and then this one's going to go here. So these two go into the side of the water pump housing, and then this goes into the block. So we'll go ahead and get this on, and then we'll flip the motor over and start on the oil pan swap. Okay, so here's another modification you got to do. We got the cast aluminum pan off, and it was a front sump. And here was the pickup, and this tab bolted to this. This main cap bolt was here, and that's where this went. So this comes off, and put that away, and this is the new one. Don't forget to transfer your O-ring. This goes here, but you need to swap the main one and the main three main cap bolts. So now this will go in here and sit on there. And then we have the new steel pan. Now, don't just bolt that and assume that your pickup's going to be the right height. What I'm going to end up doing after I get everything cleaned up and ready to go back together, I'm going to get a little bit of clay. I'll put a little piece of plastic over the screen and put a little clay here and put that pan on, and it'll compress that clay, and then I'll be able to measure my distance to make sure that this is going to work out all right. So this is with the pan swap done. I have all the bolts on. I Loctited them. They get torqued to 10 foot-pounds. I did it in 2 different sessions and started in the center and went out as far as the bolt pattern. This is the aluminum brace for the transmission. The old cast iron oil pan had it built in. I got longer bolts from the Jeep dealer because the pan flange is thinner right here, so we needed longer bolts, but that's what it looks like done. And there's a plug in here that I knocked out from the inside out before I put the pan on for the oil dipstick tube to go in. Well, as you can see, I got the intake off. It's just 10 volts, 5 on each side. And what we're gonna do is, I put it in the back of the Jeep to get it out of the way, but we are going to reuse these intake gaskets. A brand new motor, never run. These will be fine. I put it back here. I'm gonna cover it up to keep stuff out of the injectors and keep the gaskets clean. And when we're ready to put the Edelbrock on, we'll reuse those. All right, well, check this out. I spent a couple hours, but I got the Edelbrock Victor 2 intake manifold assembled. It's not bolted on, I just have it sitting on here. I put tape across the runners to keep crap out of the engine, and then I just set this on there, 1, to get it out of the way, and 2, to give you an idea what it looks like. So this is it. This is the kit. Came with the fuel rails. I came with the oil fill neck. The cap is off the 6.4 Hemi intake. This is the 80 millimeter throttle body off of the 6.4 intake. The Hellcats use the 92. They're bigger and they fit. This has a dual bolt pattern on the front of this intake. You can see here where the holes are. It took me a while to figure this out. It's literally almost 180 degrees out. The gasket only goes on one way, and then I turned it until I got it to fit without hitting anything, but I guess it's irrelevant where it sits, but it's on there. And we're gonna get a hose from the oil fill breather to the neck of the intake right here. And on the other side, there is a fitting here, and the PVC valve is here. And I got the Improved Racing brand oil catch can. If you've seen the video on my C7 Corvette, I put one on my Corvette. I'm gonna get one for Rex's C6 Corvette later this summer. But I'm gonna get the catch can because it's a dry intake, and I just don't want all of that oil residue and buildup getting all over the inside of this, tops of the valves, backs of the throttle body. So the catch can is gonna go to the fitting on the neck and to the PVC valve. So the rails came, it's got a plug here. This is a 360-degree swivel, 180-degree bend. It's got a crossover line here. There's another line, let me grab it. This is the other line it came with. So this is going to connect here, and then this is going to connect to the Jeep. Now, if you're replacing this intake on a 5.7 or a 6.1 in a Challenger or a Charger, you're going to have that fitting like this that's straight, that's got the neck in it. I have a tubing kit that makes those bends. I actually have to do one of those here for the power steering line that I cut that's getting shortened. So once this is in the car, I'm going to clip that on, and then we'll modify the other end of the fuel line, and it'll clip in here, and then it'll feed from the passenger side like that. So pretty nice kit. I think it was, I don't know, 16, 17, 1800 bucks, something like that. But it's got the straight neck, and we'll be able to come out and go to the passenger side to get that snorkel hooked back up. So that's it. Next step is clean up the engine bay. Got to do some rust prevention, and we're waiting for the bell housing to come in for the transmission, and we'll get this together and get it in the Jeep, and then we can start getting some of the other mods done. All right, well, I wanted to go through a couple things before we wrap this up. One of them is do yourself a favor. When you get all of your paperwork for everything, I have a manual for the crate Hemi. I got the manual for the intake manifold. I got a manual for the gauges that we're going to put in. I also have torque specs. You're going to need those. I got everything in a binder. I leave it out here with me, and I have it when I need it. So I mentioned the gauges. This engine has 4 oil galleys on it. It came with a really nice piece over there that was a cooler, and the filter bolts onto the bottom of it, and it has inlet and outlet lines for a remote cooler. And we're not going to use it. We're already going to have a trans cooler and a power steering cooler up front. I don't think it's gonna need it. It's not like mine and my son's Corvettes where everything's packed in there and you barely have any airflow, and the underhood temperatures are always about 1,000 degrees. I think this will be fine. But one of the reasons that we're not going to use the oil galleys and try to come off with, you know, some type of, like maybe some brass nipples or something, is that the ECU is going to need 2 sensors for temperature and pressure, and the gauges are going to need 2 sensors for temperature and pressure. So the engine has 3 oil galley ports. One's in the front here for your pressure, and then you have one on the side, which is temperature, and there's another one right above it. Now the fourth one is on the bottom of the oil filter adapter. It's threaded 1/8 NPT, and it actually has a sensor in it. I have to change it out. It's the wrong one, but that's going to be our 4 ports. So temperature and pressure for the ECU, temperature and pressure for the gauges. One of the other things too is the Crate 6.4 came, I don't know if you can see them behind me, came with those stainless steel exhaust manifolds. They're really nice pieces, thick flanges, got the O2 bungs in them. Unfortunately, it just doesn't clear anything inside the Wrangler. So the Dakota Customs kit gave us the cast iron ones. Yeah, they don't look as cool, and they're a little heavy. And those stainless ones aren't light either, but you know, these are going to flow pretty well also. I mean, every port comes into this giant, huge single runner that comes out the back, and it's going to give you the clearance you need. Dakota Customs also has an exhaust kit that matches these manifolds. We didn't get it because we're going to put an auxiliary fuel tank in, and that exhaust kit's not going to work. Rex did find a kit he thinks is going to work, and we'll be able to modify it, and we're going to make it work. But so that's what we're going to do there. Now those aren't on yet because I'm actually going to spend the money and get them ceramic coated. They'll last longer, you know, look better a little while, and the ceramic coat, you know, they'll do it inside and outside, and it'll keep the underhood temperatures down, which is important, you know, especially since we're not going to run the oil cooler. Other than that, just waiting for the transmission bell housing. I got to swap out the pump assemblies in it. I got a new torque converter for it. There is a spacer that goes on the back of the crankshaft before you put the flywheel on, so it spaces it out so that the starter will engage. We'll go through that, and you might be able to see over here that I have used the POR 15 and got everything rust proofed. And don't get that on your skin, as I have found out on the internet. It is very difficult to get off. But with that being said, that's going to wrap this up. And next video, we should have the transmission done. I'll show you how that goes, and we'll get it bolted up to the engine. And I got a few mods to do inside the engine compartment before we put it in, but hopefully that video will also be engine installation inside the Wrangler. And that's the easy part. Then everything else comes after that. So stay tuned.